There's never a dull moment when it comes to Minnesota sports. Whether it's positive or negative.
The Yankees have swept the Twins.
Minnesota Sports Chat has you covered. Talking nothing but Minnesota sports all year long. It's time now for the soon-to-be award-winning, if only in his own mind, Minnesota Sports Chat with your host, Ross Brendel.
Well, let me check. Yep, that mic still works. Camera's on. It's good to be back. It's been a bit since I've had an edition of the world-winning, how about award-winning Minnesota Sports Chat, soon to be award-winning. That is, if only in my own mind, presented by my friends at Beans Coffee Company. Make sure you head to coffeebybeans.com. Promo code SportsChat is going to save you some cash on simply the best coffee around. Coffeebybeans.com. Promo code SportsChat. Judd, it's been so long since I've done this. This is probably the longest hiatus I've had on this podcast, which is both good and bad. Good because it means the A job where you and I actually work is fulfilling a lot of my time. Bad because I don't remember how everything works. I'm off-centered on this camera. I can't find the perfect spot. Maybe it's right there.
I don't think there is one.
Okay.
I think I don't think it's you. I think it's the setup.
Okay. I'm also in the makeshift temporary of the A job, the 1500 ESPN studio, which, by the way, Judd, actually inside radio broadcasting talk, not a bad studio for like running games and actually running a station. Doing what we're doing, it's a little interesting right now. I'm kind of coming to you at an angle for those watching on YouTube, but it's good to see you. It's been a while since we've actually talked work or just fun in the play department like we're going to do today. So thank you for making time. And for those on YouTube, we both got the blue memo.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It is still, as far as I'm concerned, hoodie season until like May 1st. And I love this weather. So
I went for a walk yesterday, Judd, and as you know, I guess, am I cold-blooded or hot-blooded if I'm always hot? That would make me, that if I'm always hot-blooded.
Yeah, because I'm always cold.
Okay. So I went for a walk yesterday, and it was sunny and 48 degrees, but minimal wind, and I did it in a T-shirt. And it was a 40-minute walk.
Great lately. Yeah, I'm not complaining.
It's been great. Record date on this is April the 9th, where I believe the Minnesota Twins have already been mathematically eliminated from the American League Central. We'll get there in just moments. So I actually was going to carve out some time to talk a little bit of Minnesota Vikings football with you. But you know what? I'll actually leave that to Purple Daily, which you can hear 7 days a week anywhere you get your podcasts or on YouTube. And I know your Substack page does a lot of Viking stuff. So we'll actually just leave that where it's at because I got a couple of different frustrations today. And you are the sports dad. You are a sports psychologist. So I'm just going to ask you a couple different questions. And actually, we'll play popcorn here. Grab bag edition. Do you want to start with the Timberwolves or do you want to start with the Minnesota Twins? Because those are the two we'll focus on before I go deep into your inner psyche.
Let's start with the Wolves, considering their meltdown.
Okay, so here's my question. Yes, meltdown last night. So I'll be honest, Judd, I'm old. I have to selectively choose the nights I can hang, as the kids call it. I crawled into bed early, just assuming that the Timberwolves would win and knowing that the Twins would lose, even though the game was tied, okay?
Sure.
So I wake up this morning to a flurry of texts and a SKOR alert that says the Timberwolves lost, and I go, well, how the F did that happen? When I went to bed, they were leading by 22 points with 10 minutes left. So it started getting me down a thought process that I don't love, but I think we're here. For years, I had mentioned to people the Karl Anthony Towns, I guess we'll call them defenders. Hear me out on this. Karl Anthony Towns is a great basketball player. He's a really good basketball player. Never was sure if you could build a franchise around him. Turns out perhaps the Timberwolves, maybe even the New York Knicks have those same reservations because both franchises not necessarily built around him being the alpha dog, the A option. I'm getting to the point last night, and I don't want to say last night solidified it because I've started to think this for a couple years now. There's a difference to me between basically a superstar player and what could be a Hall of Fame player.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that Anthony Edwards won't be a Hall of Fame player. He probably will be. But he's not, and I'm almost getting to the point where I believe he never will be. He's never going to be in that LeBron, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan. You need to win an NBA Finals for that to happen.
Sure.
Even like a Kyrie Irving, a Luka Doncic to a degree. If he was as good as we think he is, or as we hope he will be one day, and maybe he still will be there, crap like last night against Milwaukee would not happen. He would be better in clutch time than he is late in game when it's end game scenario. You have the ball, go dagger somebody, get a game-winning shot. I am not saying he can't still become that, but I will tell you, Judd, as we sit here today, my doubt that he will ever be anything more than just a really good NBA player is at an all-time high. And I don't think it's fair to put all of the collapse against Milwaukee on him, but it's just another sign. I also think, look, far be it from me to tell people how to live their personal lives. I also think there might be some character flaws in his personal life that gives me a little bit of pause for concern. So I guess I'm at an all-time low for Anthony Edwards. Now, he can win me back over the next couple of weeks. Maybe the Wolves go on a nice little run in the playoffs. Who's to say that they won't? But right now, Judd, I'm just very annoyed by the Minnesota Timberwolves and primarily Anthony Edwards.
Well,
anything I say there, do you disagree with or have a vastly different opinion?
Well, I think it's more nuanced on both things than that, because first of all, on Ant, the personal life thing, I dismiss a little bit because we don't know these people, and there's every athlete just about has, as most of us do, their flaws, and we know the bad stuff. We don't know everything about them, so that one, I get your point, but unless you get in trouble with the law, like that's the one thing, right? Like if you're in trouble with a law, that is a problem. When it's like something where it's like a personal life thing, I don't know. But anyway, I'm disappointed in Ant's season because of the clutch time stuff, and his 3-point shooting's been, has really improved, but there's other facets of his game that need to improve. And I personally thought he would be a far more complete player coming off the Olympic experience. So now I would disagree. I think he's a star, but as far as like the next step to potentially winning a title, yeah, I don't disagree. Like you have to win a title. You simply have to win a title. And so I'm disappointed in some things. And I certainly think that there for sure could be more on the court maturity. The technical fouls drive me crazy. They're unnecessary. They're stupid. He needs to be a smarter player. He needs to hone other pieces of his game back to where they previously were. But all of that being said, like this whole team, he is definitely part of the problem. But, Chris Finch, like what is going on here? The clutch time thing to me, that's not how good teams operate. That's a problem. It was very easy for the first 2 months to blame it on the Cat trade, and Julius and Dante were new, and the whole team had to gel together, and Mike Conley was injured and trying to play through it, and that didn't go great. But we're long past that now. So that Bucks loss and a lot of their defeats this season have been disturbing, and Ant certainly plays a role there. But I don't know if I'm prepared to say he's not going to be a superstar yet, because I need to see if he can use this as a springboard to really mature as a basketball player. As a person, I have no clue. A lot of guys don't mature, but that doesn't mean there's a very different, and I've covered enough guys. There's a big difference between being a mature human being and a mature athlete. And in my world, I only really, really care, as long as you're not a horrible person, that you are a mature athlete. Because the other stuff, there's so much stuff we don't know that it's really hard to pass judgment on, like, Ant has this kid out of wedlock, blah, blah, blah. There's a ton of those we don't know about. So we're sort of like just taking what we learn. As long as you stay out of trouble with the law, which is, as far as I know, Ant has, that to me sort of puts the rest of the stuff to the side.
Yeah, and I'll clarify two things. I don't believe Ant to be the world's worst person. I know he does a lot of work in the community. I know the Timberwolves do a great job in the community. So I'm not going to, quote unquote, hang him for any of that. And I don't believe that he's not a superstar. I just think we're at the point where, going into this year, it was always going to be the face of the league. He's one of the faces of the league.
Yeah,
I don't think you can be one of the faces of the league and playing in the play-in tournament. Unless there's a bunch of other circumstances that go against you that leads you to the play-in tournament. On Chris Finch, do we believe? I kind of believe he might be coaching for his job over the next few weeks. That once new ownership is truly in here, they didn't hire him, nor did Tim Connolly. Clearly, they must like him enough because he's still here. But once you go into a full offseason with new ownership and Connolly, if this thing flames out in the play-in tournament with what we still believe to be a talented roster, is it possible that he's looking for work and the Wolves are maybe looking for the services of Mike Malone or insert coach name here?
Well, until Malone was shockingly fired by Denver yesterday, I would have probably said long shot. But Tim Connolly, of course, if you go back and trace this, hired Mike Malone because Connolly at the time was GM of the Nuggets. He's now the Pobo of the Timberwolves. And there is a chance that I will say, again, with the late game meltdowns and the clutch time stuff, Chris Finch has to take responsibility for some. Like, you can blame the players, and that's fine. And yes, they are at fault as well. But, if Tim Connolly, forget A-Rod and Laurie for a second. If Connolly decides that Ant needs tough love, because I don't, Finch is sort of like a father tough love guy. I think Malone's more of a yeller and screamer. And he's a good coach, and he's won a championship. I think the most important thing here is, what does Connolly think will get the most out of Ant? And if he decides that, at least for a few years, the Malone style has a chance to win a championship, the fact that Malone became available, I think really changes things. And Laurie and A-Rod, in my opinion, are going to be somewhat reactionary, but Tim Connolly's their guy. And assuming Tim stays now, and I think Tim leaves if Glenn stays, but now Glenn's gone. So assuming Connolly stays now, I could definitely see a world where Connolly says the most important thing in this franchise is getting the most out of Ant and making sure that we do that. And if they decide that Mike Malone is the guy to achieve that, I could easily see a coaching change.
There's plenty of cases in history that will tell you that you making a coaching change can make you worse. It might actually be a bad move. There's also in the NBA plenty of historical cases that you can point to and say it was a good coach or a good decision. Michael Jordan, as he's developing, the Bulls moved away from Doug Collins, gave him Phil Jackson. Right. Steph Curry, as he's developing, goes from Mark Jackson to Steve Kerr. You mentioned Magic Johnson with the Lakers. I'm not saying Anthony Edwards is any one of those three players, but I think a lot of people think he can be there. Mm-hmm. So maybe changing it up, fresh coach, maybe that helps with that. I'm not even saying that that's going to happen. I think Chris Finch has done a great job. There have been plenty of people that have chronicled he might be the best coach in Timberwolves history. He's easily probably the second best coach in Minnesota Timberwolves history.
That's the question.
Yeah, correct.
If you don't think that he can, none of the rest of it matters, because Chris Finch could be the best coach in the history of the franchise.
Correct.
But other than flip, the franchise is a disaster. So it doesn't matter. Like the only thing Tim Connolly is not going to ever think about this in perspective of the Timberwolves. He's going to think about it in perspective of what does he think. So Chris Finch, great guy, great coach, but if he is deemed not to be a championship coach, that's where changes get made, and they're surprising and they're unfortunate, but you have to get the most from Ant, and you have to decide on the personality type of coach that's going to get the most from Ant. It might not last a long time, but if you get a championship, guess what? No one cares.
And Judd, in my opinion, every franchise, when they have their coach, that should be the coach that the franchise has identified will bring us a championship. Now, timelines are different. Every now and then you hire a coach. Twins might be going through this. We'll segue to that. Yep. You might hire a new manager in the offseason and say, okay, we're not going to win the World Series next year. But when our time comes back around, we believe that this guy is the guy that will get us a World Series 3-4 years down the road. Same with the Timberwolves and in the NBA. Right now, the Wolves are in win now mode, and this year's been a dramatic failure. Next year, they'll also be in their NBA Finals window, and it needs to be better than this. So the question in the offseason is exactly what you talked about. Did we do things this year that were counterproductive to him winning a championship? And if we fix these things in the offseason, can he take us to one next year? And if we deem that he can't, well, then a change has to be made. And then it always goes back to, well, who are you going to get that's better? Happens in all sports. And my answer to that is always the same. Judd, it's not my job to tell you who's better. Do you know whose job that is? That's the owners and the general manager. They can figure that part out, not me.
Right. Exactly.
I do want to talk some Twins baseball with you very quickly. You know what? I mean, they've kind of fallen to a point where I think for most fans going into the year, they were kind of a meh team anyways. If they played well, maybe people would care more, but they're really on the afterburner for many reasons. Last year, maybe not making trades at the deadline, having a horrible, horrendous finish in September, not doing a lot in the offseason. And then this year starts. And I don't want to make 11 games out to be a season. I said this with Dex last week when I joined him on the SKOR Twins show. I think with the Twins were 2-4 at the time. Maybe they were 1-4. Plenty of teams, World Series winners, World Series losers are going to have stretches where they go 1-4. Hell, they're even going to have stretches where they go 3-8. Mm-hmm. The problem with this team is this already looks like an extension of what we saw the last month and a half from the last season.
Right.
And also when this team has been at its worst, this is what it looks like. Pitchers, for a variety of reasons, not being able to give you more than 5 innings. The team not being able to score runs. When they do score runs, Judd, it all happens in 1 inning. So if you get your 5-6 runs in the 3rd inning, but then you don't score in the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and the team you're playing starts chipping away, they start believing. That's how you open the door for bad losses. Mm-hmm. My question on the Minnesota Twins is this. Because I went into the year thinking this is a playoff team, and they still might be, okay? Do I think this is a good team, and they're just not? Like, I'm overvaluing players? Or should this be a good team, and there's just a disconnect somewhere? Because that's what I lean towards. I look at the players and the roster, the pitching staff, the position players, and say, okay, probably not a World Series championship team, but this is a playoff team. They should make the playoffs, especially now with the expanded playoffs. But there just seems to be this laissez-faire attitude to everything that they do, where they just expect that they can show up and win games. And, oh, by the way, last night you have somebody like Mickey Gasper playing at second base with, honestly, Judd, I don't know if you saw it, one of just the all-time worst errors you'll ever see. That's a ball that gets hit 900 and 1,000 times, and 999 times it's an easy out. Maybe one time the play gets bobbled and you still make the out. Well, he was unable to do that. It's not all Mickey Gasper's fault. I'm just pointing that out for recency notes as to where we're at. So, good team or not a good team is probably the question from what you see. Because I'm disappointed. I'm not saying they should be
the lineup's terrible.
8-3. Yeah, nobody hits. Nobody hits.
So like they're not a good team. I mean, the bullpen has been disappointing. Last night, after he struggled in 2 outings, Griffin Jax launches the ball, like step and throw. He launches the ball, and Bobby Witt Jr. is running, and of course ends up on third base. They're not a good team. They're now 15-35 since August 17th of last year. They're not a good team. They're not a good team. They're not particularly, like, everything they claimed that they worked on in spring training has not worked. Like, their fielding is brutal again. So if you do get halfway decent pitching, the fielders screw them. The hitting is terrible. They fired the entire hitting staff, and they're actually worse at the plate than I think they were a year ago this time when they got off to yet another bad start. The starting pitching has been disappointing. Chris Paddock is gifted a spot in the rotation, and nobody knows why. Now, Pablo's hurt. Well, that's bad luck. That's unfortunate, but you're not helping yourself. You didn't create your own luck. So it's not a good team. It's not a good team, and quite frankly, I think Baldelli's going to pay the price because Derek Falvey, as president of the Twins business operations, is going to have to do something. I guarantee you, they ain't getting subscriptions to Twins TV. They drew 14,000 on a chilly but gorgeous Sunday at home against Houston, which is a good, which is a nice team. If Derek Falvey doesn't make a substantial move here fairly soon, I mean, people are apathetic, and that's death. That's sports death. People are mad at the Wolves today. Okay, they have every right to be, but if you're the Wolves, you're ecstatic about that. People care still. It's a terrible loss, but they care about you. People don't care about the Twins. And it was one thing for Derek Falvey to fend off, potentially at the end of last year, Dave St. Peter, who was the president of the team in the business operations at that point, to say, hey, I'm in charge of baseball ops. I think that Baldelli is my guy. But he now is serving the master of business operations, which is himself. And if you're not getting subscriptions to Twins TV, that is a revenue source that you are literally flushing down the toilet. If you're not drawing fans, that's a problem. So unless they plan on, dumping players and just saying, screw it, and getting as bad as they possibly can, if they plan on contending, they don't have, the runway is just about gone because the plane attempted to take off in August. Like this is not a 3-8 start. This is a stretch of 15 and 35 baseball that looks very, very similar. The bookend, like you had a winter, but that was it. And you went to spring training and you spouted out all of this. Hey, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. We're going to do this and we're going to do that. And you did nothing. So somebody has to pay the price. And if you let status quo, if they don't turn it around, and by turn around, I mean win like 10 consecutive games, they might as well shut off the damn lights. So they got a problem here. They got a big problem. And you got a guy in charge of the business who does not know how to run a business. Derek is a baseball guy. So, and furthermore, you got the poll ads who threw you the bait of, hey, we're going to sell. And now they're like, we're not sure we're going to sell. Like, if you want to talk about angering, pissing off a fan base that's now going to walk, like this is a divorce. But the worst part is there's no passion left. This is a divorce where you just separate and then there's nothing left. That's it. And you forget about your ex. And that in a business, you are absolutely submarining yourself. And that is exactly what the Minnesota Twins are doing.
On Rocco, are you thinking he's potentially already open for an early season dismissal, or is this something that comes more towards the end of a season? Because the interesting thing, and the Timberwolves kind of just went through this, we heard a lot of people talk about flagrant howls included. Chris Finch probably isn't going anywhere until the ownership thing gets figured out. You can make the same comparison or maybe even conclusion with the Minnesota Twins, but we don't know. The poll ads could still pull the team back if they wanted to. I don't think they're going to because of how far in debt they are, but their sale could still take another year. Are they willing to wait that out for a new ownership to figure out?
But that's my point. They can't.
No, they can't.
Like they're gonna go more in debt. Like if they want to continue to accrue debt, which deteriorates the value of the actual franchise, be my guest. That's fine. But I mean, unless you go to Falvey and say, you know what, strip it down. And by the way, Falvey should be on the hot seat as well, but I guarantee he's not. But unless they're going to go to Derek and say, strip it down, just strip it down. We don't care. Lose 100+ games. If they have any hope of like getting subscribers to Twins TV, right? Getting fans, getting interest, they're going to have to do something here. Like you can't let this go on for a month unless you're completely just have no common sense. So we're going to get to, like, if we get to the end of April and they've won 6 games or something like that, and they're going to let this go, they are more foolish than I believe that they were. And I think that they are right now, as currently run, very foolish. So we'll see. But on Finch, you wouldn't make that change. So I think it's fair to say that the A-Rod and Laurie group are going to be approved by the Board of Governors here fairly soon. So I think that their situation has been resolved. The Finch thing would, I think, in my opinion, be up to Conley. And it would come, obviously, like if the Wolves make a playoff run, it changes. But if the Wolves don't get out of the play-in tournament or they get bounced in the first round, I think that could be like a May or June change. But I mean, I think that the differences between what the Twins are facing and the Wolves, to me, is a huge gap. And in Rocco's case, I don't even know he deserves to go. You just can't let this go on.
Yeah.
And unless you're like, what are you going to fire Tommy Watkins at third base? Like, you got to do something that people care about. And assuming that they're not going to blow out Falvey, which I assume that they're not going to, the next logical sacrificial person, unfortunately for him, is Rocco Baldelli.
A couple of things on the Twins here, just in closing, and then I'll move on to something fun for you. Well, I hope this whole thing has been fun, but a little bit of a fun bit for you. One thing I've also noticed, let's just say I have my ways of watching the Twins without watching on Twins TV. The one thing I've noticed, too, that stands out, Judd, is just the lack of sponsorships. How many times they go to a commercial break and it just tells you commercial break in progress. And that's unsold inventory. So that's not a good sign just about sentiment around the team, because if the team was playing well, if fans were excited about the team, you would see more advertising in there. Logic would tell you. I can also tell you I was at that game on Saturday, which in the sun, Judd, was gorgeous. It was low to mid 40s. It was, gorgeous, relatively speaking, for the time of year. I'm looking forward to seeing what the crowd will look like this weekend. Now, the Twins could have 2 more losses. Maybe they have 2 more wins. Who knows? But they're probably going to be somewhere around 5-10 when they return home this weekend. But the weather's going to be in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So that'll be another good indication of where people are at. I will tell you, unless I miss something, this is probably the first time going into the year there's really no major upgrades to the ballpark, which is probably fine. I'm not saying it needs it, but the poll ads have been pretty good about every year giving you
right?
the concessions.
They concessions. Yep. That's it.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's fine. Like, that's nice, but they didn't do any massive ballpark upgrade where they told you, hey, we're really excited about this.
Right.
They have some new grab and go stuff, which I'm never convinced that's as quick as they make it out to be, especially when there's 30,000 people in there. But hey, more power to them. I did notice, because I have a system, Judd. If I go to a ball game and I'm going to have any more than a beer, I will buy myself a beer. So I get my cup, and then I'll walk over to one of the family value stands and I'll buy a $5 or $5 cans of beer. Well, everything at the family value stand went up this year. So it's now 12-ounce Bud Light, which is still a good deal by comparison, is now $5.99. It was $5 last year. The popcorn went up from $3 to $3.99. The hot dog went up from $3 to $3.99. So they raised all the prices there, and I think they did that twofold. One, we all know prices are up. 2, in all honesty, I think they expect less attendance. So how are you going to make up for that? You're going to make up for it in the price. So that stood out to me, and that stood out to me just as interesting. Do you want to guess what one McGolden cost me prior to the tax? Because now, remember, a couple of years ago, the Polad family switched to, it's the price and then the tax. For the longest time, they ate that. It was just the price on the board was the price. Any idea what a McGolden is before tax now at the ballpark?
And that's not at the family stand. That's a full on.
That's
price.
A full. You just walk up, full on.
$13.
Really good. $12.99. So after tax, $14. You're paying $1 an ounce.
Well, a craft beer last year was like 16.
Yes, yeah.
But a craft beer at a Wild game is like 20.
Oh yeah, and this is not unique to the Twins. This is just where we're at. And it's something I bring up every time. I don't know what the tipping point is. Eventually, we're going to get there, Judd, where you're going to price the average fan out of coming to a game.
Yeah,
the Twins.
That's actually the concessionaire, right? It's Delaware.
Correct.
Like the Twins are so that's all priced by the concessionaire, who of course gets that beer for what, $3 a can? Like,
yes.
I'm sure it's nothing. Or a keg is not expensive. But then they get the keg, and then they charge you for pour like $14. So yeah, it's a complete ripoff.
And I will give the Twins credit. You can still go to a Twins game, even through their site or on the secondary market. You can still go to a Twins game, buy a few items, and walk out and feel like, if you do it right, now you have to put a little bit of work into it.
Right.
But you can go to a Twins game and feel like you didn't have to take out a second mortgage on your home. I still believe they're the only team in town that can do that. It's even gotten a lot more expensive at CHS Field in the last few years. Okay, let's do this. I'm going to do 5 filler questions with you, Judd. I haven't done this in a little while.
Sure.
5 filler questions.
Okay, but we're going to keep them all fairly sports related, okay?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to dig into Judd Zulgad's sports psyche. And I may have done this with you before, but if I did, it's been a while. Your earliest sports fandom memory is what, Judd?
Probably going to a Twins Royals game at Met Stadium in 1978 when I was 8. That's probably my or like fandom wise, that's probably
Yeah.
it was jacket day. God, and they had those terrible, I don't even know if they're polyester or what they were, but they were white. They were white jackets that had twins. They were a very 1970s though. They were not cool, but it was like Freddie Patek at short, Frank White at second. I think Pete Lecoq was at first base, George Brett at third. It was an old school and that was a good team because that's the KC team that made the American League Championship Series like 3 consecutive years. So that was my earliest memory. Carew was still with the Twins too, which was nice.
Follow-up question, not an official question. Were the giveaways as chintzy in the 70s, Judd, as they are now?
Oh God, yeah. Well, I mean, they're nicer now. I think they were worse.
That's the thing. I still think, again, the right giveaway can be done very nicely. I saw the Joe Mauer Hall of Fame plaque that they gave out last year.
Yeah,
I was surprised at how nice that was.
Yes. In the 70s, you had Jacket Day, Helmet Day, which was just a plastic Twins helmet. You had Cap Day, which was a sponsored cap, which is the case now. The relic that's gone now, which was the funniest, halter top day.
What?
The ladies would get a halter top. It was very 70s.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. You'd get a halter top.
Your most disappointing sports memory, Judd. I'm thinking as a fan. Maybe there's been disappointments covering teams. As a fan.
Yeah, I was a huge fan of the 84 Cubs. And I
can see that.
Watched them on, at the time, GN every single day. And of course, they went to the National League Championship Series. At the time, it was the best 3 of 5. They blew out the Padres, I think, in game 1 at Wrigley. They won game 2. They had to win 1 of the final 3 games in San Diego, and they proceeded to get swept. And then the Padres went to play Detroit in the World Series, and that was the Tigers team that started 35-5. It was really, really good. But that was going to be the Cubs, of course, first World Series appearance at the time since 1945. Didn't happen again until 2016. So, but that was as disappointed as a fan as I've been, especially as a kid, because I think I was 14. Behind that was probably some North Stars. But the thing about it was the North Stars, the 81 Stars went to the Stanley Cup Finals. The 81-82 team, extremely disappointing because they were expected, follow that up, right? Been to the Stanley Cup Finals, and they got eliminated by Murray Bannerman and the Blackhawks in the first round. Bannerman stood on his head. So those are probably my top 2.
The one thing that I'll add to that, Judd, is you always talk about when a team loses that, like the Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals. I think a lot of people, me included, thought, I said a year prior they're going to go to the finals and be the sacrificial lamb probably to Boston, which is exactly what would have happened. But we always think about, that stinks, but they'll be back. Well, no, sometimes when you're there, you better cash in because you might not ever be back. Ask Dan Marino about that.
98 Vikings, too.
Correct.
15-1 conference championship game. It was devastating, but you said, okay, but 99, Moss is back. I mean, look at all the team. Randall Cunningham's back. And of course, they did go to the playoffs, but I think they lost that year in the divisional round. And that was the Jeff George game in which the Vikings, I think it was George, fumbled the football, took one look at the ball on the ground and said, I ain't diving for that ball. And so, you definitely cannot assume success based on success.
And that was the greatest show on turf that they lost to, right? Pretty badly in St. Louis. This is how long it's been, by the way, Judd, since I've done this bit. I forgot to give you the question number. So just for
Sure.
Number 1.
the sake of doing it, we're going to hit
Number
these.
2.
Okay, here we go. Here's question number 3.
Number 3.
I want to know your favorite player of all time in any sport. Who is your favorite player, Judd? And that could just be you enjoyed watching them, or maybe it's the person you would most like to go have a beer with at Padres.
No, probably my favorite player, again, as a kid, was probably North Star goaltender Gilles Malache, who ended up being the goalie coach for Marc-Andre Fleury in Pittsburgh. I think Gilles was the first goalie coach that Flower had with the Penguins. But because I wanted to be at the time a goaltender, I don't know why, but I admired him a lot, and he and Beaupre at the time split the nets a lot for the North Stars. So Gilles Malache, Number 27 would probably be my best response. Baseball-wise, probably Carew. Football-wise, probably Kramer or Tarkington.
Tarkington, I love watching Fran Tarkington highlights even to this day. He
That
was
comes to the end of
a,
his career. Yeah.
as you would know, and most Vikings fans would know, he was a mobile quarterback menace before that was even a thing.
And a small dude too.
Correct.
He was mobile, but he was not strong. It's not like now they're strong.
But he could still chuck the ball pretty good. He was an effective
No,
passer,
I'm saying
but
like he scrambled, got hit, and he wasn't a big dude.
Sure. Yep. Got it.
Yes.
Got it.
He definitely could throw.
Okay, here's question
Number 4.
Judd, where do you want to go sports-wise that you have not seen yet? Example for me is I want to go to Wimbledon.
Oh,
and I'm not even a big tennis guy. I appreciate it definitely, but I'd love to go to Wimbledon or the Daytona 500.
Yeah. So like event or venue.
It can be anything. Can be an event, can be a venue that you want to see.
Probably, I would say, since I'm such a big hockey fan, the Bell Center in Montreal, which I guess is just great. Now, what I really would like to have, I would have loved to gone to way more of the original 6 buildings. The Forum in Montreal, Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto, buildings like that. I did get to go to the 91 All-Star game in Chicago at the stadium, which was awesome. Just so much fun. But I would probably say, since it's like, hallowed hockey ground, despite the fact it's not an old building, the Bell Center in Montreal would probably be atop my list.
Even when Montreal is bad, you can tell on TV that it's fun.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's special.
Yep, that's a testament to how good it is. Okay, here we go. Your final 1 in 5 filler questions.
Number 5.
So if you're like me, you want all Minnesota teams to win a championship, no matter who that is. Twins, Wild, Wolves, Vikings, Loons. Go for hockey. Team outside of Minnesota, Judd, that you want to see win a championship. If it can't be the Minnesota teams that I named,
that's interesting.
who would you sit back in your recliner when they win a championship, even if they've already won one before? Or maybe they've won a bunch, but when they win one, you go, that's pretty cool. I like that fan base, or I like that team. I'm good with this. Who is that?
Man, that's a good question. Because it would have been the Cubs, but the Cubs won one, and I'm not now a big Cubs fan. Boy, I'm trying to think of players that I want to see. I really liked when Ovechkin got his 2000, was that 19 against the Golden Knights, 2019-ish, 18-ish.
Yeah. Give or take.
That was really, really cool. But he got it. I'm trying to think, cause like, I don't need to see a guy get a bunch of championships. And teams wise, outside, outside, I don't know, because the one team that clearly I would love to see win a championship, just because I think it would be so much fun, is the Vikings, but they're not outside of the market. And I guess I would be, their fans are a little bit obnoxious, but I guess to go back to hockey, the Maple Leafs haven't won a Stanley Cup since 1967. I don't think they haven't been to one since then. And that in Montreal are basically the epicenter of hockey. So it would be interesting to see. Do I think that their fans would take it well? No, I think they become completely obnoxious, which of course does hurt their case. But yeah, that's a good question. It's funny that it more comes back to, like, I might say the Vikings if I was in Chicago.
Sure.
Like
I
the
get
Vikings
that.
winning a championship, like they are the team, right? Like they're the next team. Toronto has won. It's just been a long time, 50 plus years. But I mean, the Vikings are the next team of, like, my God, they've been good for a long time. They've had chances. In some ways, they are the Cubs now.
Unless they're playing the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl, Judd, the Vikings will be the sentimental favorite of America when they get there. If it's Buffalo and Minnesota, maybe it's next year, could be a bit of a split. But I actually really agree with you. If you remove ourselves from Minnesota,
yeah, they're like the next team.
Judd, I know none of them will admit to it on the record, but they've told me. I know Packers fans that would cheer for the Vikings if they make it to the Super Bowl. And I'm not joking about that. Yeah.
But you're right on Buffalo.
Buffalo would be
That's
the
a
one that I
no-show, right.
think might supersede the Vikings. I got a couple teams for you, and then we'll close this out.
Yep.
I always cheer for the Marlins when they're in the playoffs because I think it's hilarious. All year long, they have 7,000 fans. Then the playoffs start, and they remember when they would get 55, 60,000 at Joe Robbie Stadium after getting 3,000 all year long. That cracks me up.
I just don't like them. I've never liked their uniforms.
Oh, I loved the original ones. The ones that they wear now are disgusting. And I don't mean disgusting as good. They're terrible.
Liked them. Yeah, I've never liked them.
Okay, and here's my sneaky favorite one, just because I think the NFL is better when this team is bad. But when they go on their once every 10, 12-year run to the AFC title game, I always cheer for them. It's our Jacksonville Jaguars. They are so inept and so awful that when they succeed, it's fun.
Would you cheer for the Lions? If the Lions
No, absolutely not.
I do think they've got some now, because they've been good of late. I do think that there are probably some, if you look at the teams that I think would be sentimental favorites, like just of the nation, I tend to agree with you. I think Buffalo's first, the Vikings second. I mean, Detroit's in there somewhere. I just don't know where.
I think
Cleveland.
I understand other people in Detroit, but I do this with all teams across all the four major sports. Soccer's a little bit different because it's conference, not division.
Right.
I will not cheer for teams in my division. There are teams I'm more okay with.
Yeah.
Like if you told me between the Lions, Packers, and Bears, who do I want to win the Super Bowl? I would say it's the Lions.
Right.
I'm never going to cheer for them to win one. Yeah. Same with the American League Central. I'm not going to cheer for the White Sox. Even when the Royals won their first World Series, they went to back-to-back. I would never cheer for the Royals. They're awful. They've been awful for 20 years. Now they're going to beat my favorite team to winning a World Series. I'm not cheering for that.
And they did it.
And they did it.
Yeah, so, I do agree. I think the Lions winning a Super Bowl would be really painful to watch.
Oh,
just because they've been so inept. Like the Vikings have been. That's the thing is the Vikings have been so consistently pretty damn good. I think Cleveland, but especially Detroit, because of your point about being in the division, I think it'd be really painful because Detroit was so crappy for so long, and for them to pop up and potentially win a Super Bowl before the Vikings, I think that might be the most painful of all. The Packers are painful, but they've done it. The Packers have won it before. If Detroit came out of, and it looked like in 2024 there was a chance, if they came out of and won a Super Bowl, I think that'd be really hard to stomach here.
And don't get me wrong, if Jacksonville beats the Minnesota Vikings to winning a Super Bowl, I would be thoroughly annoyed by that. But also it just kind of adds to the mystique and the aura that is the pain of being a Minnesota Vikings fan.
And Jacksonville's so removed, that's what I'm saying is Detroit's been in our face for how long, and the Vikings beat them like a drum for a long, long time. Yeah, Jacksonville would be annoying. I think the Lions winning Super Bowl would be painful.
Yeah, and the other one that doesn't bug me in the least because they've had Super Bowl quote-unquote heartbreak, I'd be okay if the Carolina Panthers won a Super Bowl. At least they've played in a couple at this point. So if they ever knock that door down, I'd be good with them. All right, Judd, that's all I got for you, but I do want you to plug literally seconds before you join me. And we ended up, why don't I play the right music here? We ended up kind of talking about it. You have a new Substack article out basically ranking and talking about ranking the Minnesota coaches on, I guess we'll call it their job security.
Yep, Finchy and Rocco O'Connell, who is very secure. I'll spoil that. And John Hines. How do they rank 1 to 4 job security wise?
Yeah, and I know this isn't covered, but on a scale of 1 to 10, your comfortability or grade of Bob Motzko. I'm at like a -3 at the moment. That's a whole
different conversation. I don't even have time for that. I think the seat should be hot if that helps you.
Okay, thank you, Judd. I really appreciate it. Sure. That is Judd Zulgad from SKOR North, Purple Daily, Mackey and Judd, his Substack. What are you on the X machine, Judd? Jay Zulgad?
Jay Zulgad.
What's your handle? Jay Zulgad on the X machine.
Yep.
I am the Ross Brendel. This has been Minnesota Sports Chat. Hey, I'm back. Also back next week, but I'm not going to give away the guest. I'll just tell you.
Drink your Padres, kids.
Drink your Padres. And also, Judd, I do want to let you know, Quick Trip, we talk about this all the time. This is an unsponsored, I don't know what I'm doing here, pumping them up. I am so glad they sponsor Purple Daily because I love Quick Trip. Bleeping love it. The take and bake pizzas, the bananas, an onion, Judd, for like 15 cents.
It's a grocery store. That's not a grocery store because you're in and out quicker. Quick Trip, it lives up to its name. That's my final word. See ya.
It's as good as it gets. This has been Minnesota Sports Chat. We're back again real soon.